6:30, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please rise if possible and pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson. Here. Katrina Finkowitz. Here. Doug Day.
Here.
Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. First order of business, which is item 4, is the resolution to honor Stan Burke. Doug Day was the driving force behind it, so Doug, you want to go from there?
I sure will. It's with a great honor and privilege that we put forth the resolution to honor Stan Burke. The following resolution was duly presented for consideration by the town board. Whereas Stan Burke was born in Ludloville, New York in 1932 and was a resident in the town of Lansing for almost his entire life. Immediately after graduating from Lansing High School in 1949, Stan enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. Whereas Stan Burke served his country during the Korean War, which included fighting in the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. His service included being a .50 caliber machine gunner with the 1st Marine Division. Stan Burke was an MIA and captured on December 10, 1950, and was a POW for 32 months. While captured, he endured many various physical challenges, including shrapnel behind his knee and malaria. Whereas Stan Burke was honorably discharged on October 19, 1953, he returned home a decorated Marine and was honored with a Purple Heart. Whereas Stan Burke returned to the town of Lansing seeking employment, he was hired by Milligan Station, where he worked for the next 32 years as an electrician. During this period, he and his wife Mary raised a family consisting of daughter Bonnie and 2 sons, Thomas and Rodney. Whereas Stan Burke, upon his retiring from Milligan Station, was employed as a code enforcement officer for the town of Lansing. He served in this capacity for approximately 10 years. And whereas upon review and discussion of the matter, the town board of Lansing has hereby resolved that the town board recognizes Stanley Burke's commitment, dedication, service to our community. This recognition will be etched in a plaque that will be placed not in Myers Park, but Ludloville Park. I'd like to also say that one of the men that I knew Stan, and I want to thank Mary and George for bringing up his name, as well as Gus Isaacs, as distinguished citizens of Lansing that not only fought in the Korean War, but then World War II. They are part of the greatest generation, and why we can speak freely now is part of their doing. So, with that said, I'd like to present this resolution to the town board.
I have a first and I have a second.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Katrina Finkowitz.
Yes.
Doug Day.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Motion so passed. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Here comes the fun part of the job. This is where all the photos come in. So take as many as you want.
Hold it up and
Hold it
put
up,
this
ma'am.
way. Can't believe you're talking, we're all taking pictures.
Marion, you want to get that picture also? Marion, you want to get that picture also? You were one of the driving forces behind this also.
No, that's for the family.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Next item of business, and the Burke family is You're welcome to stay, but you're also allowed to actually go. Absolutely. So on that note, our next is the draft of 2018 audit presentation. Dr. Jordan.
Thank you. Actually came out for the August board meeting and brought a draft. There's some follow-up questions. Came to the September meeting and actually handed out the final copies, the final bound copies. A couple more questions back and forth. I don't know how much you want to get into the exchange or the events throughout the draft to the final and to the current. How deep you wanted to get? You want me to present some of the highlights or?
We've been over these and over these and over these, and the bottom line is that we've had a whole month to ask questions. I was not aware of any, so I think this board's had enough. I can only speak for myself, but at some point we need to move forward. If you want to give us the highlights again for the third time, feel free.
Sure. For the just really quick, for the first draft, we didn't have a Golden Point audit, which is a joint venture equity interest that you have in that, the town has, and so we got that report and finalized it. There were some follow-up questions, as I said, related to some budget modifications, some reports that we didn't have correct final budgets for. There was an email back and forth where I explained the changes there and the overall changes from the first draft. I actually just put out a final follow-up that I hadn't realized was open, and I don't know if you had a chance to read that today. It was to further explain the recommendations about the board reviewing the journal entries. I think that may be the only thing you haven't seen, and possibly you have today. It was mid-afternoon. I emailed that out. But it just expands on the recommendations there with the more in-depth of what the process should be with the board reviewing those journal entries. I can summarize that more if you'd like, or...
Please do.
We had made a pretty generic recommendation that one employee makes journal entries and it affects the accounting system and is able to change the entity's basic financial statements outside the normal transaction cycles. Therefore, journal entries should be reviewed and approved by someone other than the person making those entries. A report of all journal entries made should be provided to the reviewer on a monthly basis. Listed the criteria for the approval process, just making sure that the journal entries appear accurate, appropriate, reasonable, and adequate as far as the audit trail and supporting documentation is concerned. And so I just during the monthly review, which already takes place, review of the supervisor's report, transfers, vouchers. The representatives of the board should also review the journal entries and supporting documentation. Supporting documentation should explain who made the journal entry and why. If practical, review and approve all entries. If not, alternatively select a threshold and review journal entries over that threshold. The reviewer should gain an understanding of the journal entries, their purpose, consult with the supporting documentation, sign the report to show the approval of all entries. That's about the last piece, I think. Some may not have seen. There are a series, as I said, of budget modifications that were done, and it was a budget modification or a budget resolution, board resolution 18-55, which affected a lot of the reports with additional appropriations of reserves or fund balances late in the year, and primarily the highway fund versus capital. Some highway road machinery, equipment, materials. So unfortunately, we didn't have that correct budget in the first go-around in the first draft, and that's why some of the major changes appeared. That addressed everything. Just the biggest thing we wanted to get to the board were the basic financial statements, the fund financial statements in August, sooner than the prior year. But, basically had a slight delay with the Golden Point report again in order to get the final form.
Well, thank you. I guess the board have any other further questions?
I just want to thank you for getting the answers to me quickly, and I appreciate you getting us at least a preliminary report early so we can start seeing things at the beginning of the budget season. That was very, very helpful.
So in your opinion, no one else has any comments or questions, in your opinion, how healthy is the town?
We
Financially.
had talked about the funds and the health of the funds. They look pretty appropriate, definitely not understated. There's different views of how much you should have in the fund balances. Really the most popular one, I guess, is the GFOA, Government Financial Officers Association. Recommends about 2 months of operating expenses, I think, yearly.
And we have 6.
Right. Could also reserve more. I wouldn't say 6 is excessive from our perspective. We kind of would like to see more than less. So there's not anything, your needs change from year to year. You'll have those resources. It's not too low.
I know that the comptroller recommended 3. I think we agreed on a maximum of 6 as we move forward and see how it plays out, see if we need to tweak it at all. But I'm not just going to spend money to spend money. So anyways, thank you.
And I would also recommend looking into other reserve options too.
Perfect.
Restricted fund balances.
Perfect. So I think what we can do is we can do this audit, this secondary checking probably at the same time with the supervisor's report. Whoever does the supervisor's report, maybe that'll be another task for them to do. We'll have probably 2 volunteers from our town board to do that. So that if one's not here, the other one can. I think we had 3 at one time. So I think I thank you for that recommendation. Is there any other comments or questions from the board?
I think we've already started doing some of that. I know I've gone over a list of, what do you call it, journal changes and check those off. Mostly interest payments, but there was a couple other things.
Okay. If there's no other further discussion, I guess we'll hopefully finally get to our resolution accepting 2018 year-end independent outside financial report and audit.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Ms. Munson?
Andrew Benson? Yes. Katrina Binkowitz?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Evan Levine?
Yes. The floor?
Ed, I would like to make a statement before we go into the privilege of the floor.
Okay.
There's a lot of parties here with a lot of feelings. Some people think they have all the facts. Some people know all the facts are not out. And so I just have a simple statement before we go any further. Over a period of decades, whenever anyone has had any complaint about any employee, manager, department head, public officer, or elected official of this town, particularly when it had to do with their history, pay, or performance, or matters involving dismissal, promotion, employment, or discipline, these matters have first gone to executive session. This has been true and remains true to this day, including under the town ethics local law, Article 18 of the General Municipal Law, and the Open Meetings Law contained in the Public Officers Law, regardless of whether the complaint or matter was speculative, supported, or true or false. Thus, the matter of campaign donations and the speculation of improper effect, supported or not, are not matters for deliberation or discussion at this meeting. The board should discuss this matter in executive session and consider its options of investigation, referral, closure, or otherwise. I therefore move to table all such discussion and address this matter in executive session, along and together with a second personnel matter pertaining to the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person, or as to matters leading to dismissal, removal, promotion, appointment, employment, discipline, demotion, or suspension of such person. Is there a second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
No.
That? Okay.
Good.
Yeah, if it's seconded, you could vote on it, but you can table and go into the executive session after the meeting, so, or you can do it now. Normally you do it at the end of the meeting.
No, we'll just table and then we'll just go into executive session at the end. I think that Katrina has set the parameters so we can go moving forward, especially with the floor.
Okay, well, I mean, there was a motion and a second, so do you want to accept the amendment to do it at the end of the meeting and then vote on it?
Yes.
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
Moving on to privilege of the floor. There is a sheet here, privilege of the floor. There also is privilege of the floor in our agenda number 7 guidelines. And for the general public, every once in a while, I read these to refresh people's memories. I will be happy to read them again. Privilege of the floor. The public shall be allowed to speak only during the public comment / privilege of the floor period of the meeting or during public hearings, or when they have reserved and granted time upon the agenda. Speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer or his or her designee and step to the front of the room. Speakers must give their name and state whether they are speaking as a resident, a member of the public, or for any other person or organization. Speakers must limit their remarks to 3 minutes, and comments unrelated to the subject matter of the public hearing are not allowed. Speakers may not yield any remaining time they may have to another speaker. With the permission of the presiding officer, a board or committee member may interrupt a speaker for the purpose of clarification or information, and not for any other reason or to debate or disagree. Such time shall not be counted against the speaker's 3-minute limit. All remarks shall be addressed to the board or committee as a body, and not to any member thereof, or to any member of the public, whether present at such public hearing or not. Speakers shall observe the commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. Interested parties or their representatives may address the board by written communications. Written documents and evidence may be submitted as part of the record of the public hearing. Persons who exceed 3 minutes violate the rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, or good taste, or deliberately or by their behavior interfere with other persons' rights to comment or participate in the public hearing, or who deliberately or by their behavior interfere with governmental administration, will be cut off, removed, or have non-recognized comments removed from the record, or any combination of the above. Before comments or statements may be excised from the record, the speaker will be verbally warned that they are in violation of the rules of this public hearing. These rules are constantly put in our meeting at the town board, and they're put in our packets. I have a list of people that have signed up for privilege of the floor, for people that came in after this sheet was pulled, after the 4 people that are here have had their time to speak. I will ask if anybody else would like to address the board using the privilege of the floor. Is that understood? Otherwise, I'm 911 right away. And I will ask for no mercy. First person up, Sue Ruoff.
Good evening. Can you hear me? My name is Sue Ruoff. Tonight I am speaking as part of the leadership team of Concerned Citizens of Lansing. We have been working with many community members over the last several months to develop an advisory committee to support the Cayuga Operating Company's transition to a data center. We have organized a wonderful, diverse group of individuals willing and committed to participating on this advisory committee. We have given you copies of the proposed town resolution for your consideration, as well as the proposed members of the committee. I'd just like to highlight the purpose and specific tasks of the committee written in the resolution. 1, promote transparency through effective communication between the Cayuga Operating Company, Lansing Town Board, the Lansing Advisory Committee, New York State authorities, and other interested organizations and the public. 2, provide public engagement and outreach opportunities by holding regular, open Lansing Advisory Committee meetings and through other means of communication. 3, explore possibilities and propose solutions to issues associated with or affected by the transition, including but not limited to current employee severance packages and/or retraining and reassignments, economic and environmental impacts on the town of Lansing and Tompkins County, environmental cleanup and monitoring, and reuse and/or decommissioning of the power plant property. 4, support Cayuga Operating Company in its seeking of state funds and/or other incentives to ensure the power plant transition, if in the best interest of the Lansing community. We appreciate your consideration of the formation of this Lansing Advisory Committee and applaud your support of community involvement in this project. We hope you will approve this resolution at your next board meeting on November 20th. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Rocco Lucenti.
Hello, my name is Rocco Lucenti. I'm here to not speak on behalf of any organization. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself as somebody who has worked in Lansing for 14 years. I am here today to defend my community. I am here to defend civility. I'm here to defend the town and the good citizens of Lansing. These attacks, levied by certain political activists in the town, have misled people to a conclusion which is false and slanderous. I am, of course, talking about the issue which Ms. Binkowitz referred to at the beginning. This group has asserted...
Excuse me,
Yes.
I think we made a statement that we were not going to discuss those particular issues this board meeting, is that correct? Or is this part, okay to...
I think it's okay with
Okay.
Mr. Lucenti is defending his company.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had clarity on it.
We're not going to comment, we're just going to listen.
Just for the...
For
And
the record.
I hope this is still counting as my time. I just want to clarify that I am here really talking about the slander that has been going around more so than what has been accused itself.
Okay.
So, just want to point a couple things out. This group has asserted that Ed Levine was the deciding vote on the waiver in question. That is false. The vote was 3-1. If he had not voted, if he had recused, it would have been 2-1. The core of this claim is simply dishonest. Do these people mean to imply that donating to the wrong political party is a form of corruption and that Ed's vote was bought? This is serious libel. I demand that the anonymous person who was responsible for this slander step forward and retract it. In over 50 years of working with the town, we've only had one no vote ever on any issue from any board member, out of dozens, if not hundreds of votes that have come before the town of Lansing over the decades. Never in the history of Lansing politics has such a dirty tactic been deployed in service of winning an election. To the people behind the attacks, I say only this: you have brought street fight politics to our nice little community, and you should be deeply ashamed. The implication of this attack should shock the conscience of residents. The message this sends to residents is obvious and scary. If you support people who these activists don't agree with, you will be viciously, personally attacked. You will be smeared no matter how long of a track record you have of good work in the town. This attack isn't about the community center. Not one resident of our complex has complained to us about the community center waiver, not one. This grotesque, coordinated character assassination is designed to smear a member of this board and to scare us away from ever participating in our community again. This is about someone or a group of people not liking that an owner in our town has certain views which are different from theirs. I'll just wrap up by saying I call on every board member to condemn this attack, to say that it's not true, and that this sort of behavior has no place in Lansing. As the leaders of our town, you have a responsibility to set the discourse for how people are supposed to treat each other. If we want to live in a town where we can all live in peace and harmony together, then that's what needs to happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Lisa Ruzicka.
We're not done with our sign in first, Lisa.
I'm next.
I have Lauren Chambliss next. I'm sorry, you'll have to wait your turn, Lisa. Will you please?
I'd like to go next because I have something to speak to this person.
Lisa, will you please go back to your seat? Lisa, will you please
Yeah,
go back to your
that's
seat?
right. You're so on the up and up arrest thing.
Our next speaker is Lauren, is it Chambliss? Hello.
Hi. So I'm here with Sue Ruoff to support the formation of a citizen advisory committee about the Cayuga Power Plant transformation or transition or whatever we want to call it. I live at 715 Lansing Station Road, so I clearly have a personal interest in what happens because I can see the plant from my house. And I'm aware of what goes on there, as are pretty much all the residents in our immediate neighborhood. But I've never joined a cause before like this, and the reason I did it was not just because it affects me personally, but because I realized when I moved here that it affects the entire community. What happens with that power plant affects our tax base, it affects our job growth, it affects our environment. It affects really the culture of Lansing. It is, before us is this opportunity to create even more than we already have, the kind of environment, the kind of community that will continue to attract young people to stay here, continue to bring young people back who leave for a few years and want to be part of this amazing community. I moved here from Spencer when I married my husband who lived in Ithaca. And we looked around to figure out where we wanted to go, and Lansing was the place because of the incredible mix and diversity of the human capital and the environmental beauty of the place. It's fantastic. There's nothing else like it in the region. And I think one measure of that broadness is the fact that when we asked people to join this committee, we got almost no no's. Everybody who had even the smallest capacity for time, and you know how busy everyone is, said yes. And if you look at the list of people who've agreed to be on the committee, if the board decides it's the right mix, is everything from business owners to people who are knowledgeable about renewable energy, to people who are involved in public health and safety. Even several members of the school district have agreed to be on the advisory committee. Because these issues, the issue of what happens to that plant affects all of us. We want to be part of the transition and support it for our community with transparency and with help and with everything we can do to make sure this is a win-win for everybody, including the shareholders of the corporation, but most importantly, our community. So we hope that you will take this proposal seriously, and if you have any questions, that you'll reach out to us.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ruth Groff. I hope I pronounced it right.
With respect to Katrina's response, I'm going to withdraw my
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to exercise privilege of the floor?
Me?
Okay.
I'm Lisa Rizika from 101 Salmon Creek Road. I just want to bring up the fact that you remind me a lot of your brother, Ed Levine. It was recently divulged that you took a big campaign contribution.
We're not going to talk about that right now, thank you. We're going to talk about it in executive session.
I don't care. I have privilege of the floor, and I'm talking about it now. That Ed took a campaign, big campaign finance from someone, and then he voted in their favor recently. He reminds me a lot of his brother, and his brother has just been sentenced
Please direct it to the town board, your concerns about the town, not about personal
Oh, my concern about the town is if Tim and I had given you a campaign finance, would you possibly, of course you don't answer any questions, voted in favor of not taking our home and our security, our property value, and our health away from us, and allowing the Rod and Gun Club to move next door to us? No, this is very much about me.
Lisa, we understand your strong feelings, but there was laws that we were following. We followed the process. That's what we have to do.
Really, our appeal pretty much laid out the laws of Lansing, which you all neglected. Sorry. But you know what? Weak, Katrina. And we need really powerful women. We really do. And that's all I have to say here tonight. Get it out there. Remember, we all have family, and a lot of us are together on everything. And, your brother on Sperry Lane, he bought my father's house and said, oh, we're just going to do some remodeling, and built a monstrosity. And then he was never even investigated for the fire. Oh, that was convenient. Just saying. Yeah, my time's up. Just saying. Yeah, just saying. Two-faced Levine.
Who's next?
I don't care.
Oh, Michael.
Michael Blair from 118 Ross Road. Just want to support both Sue and Lauren in the request for the Lansing Advisory Committee for the Computer Operating Company transition. I think their first two goals, both transparency and public engagement, are things that I certainly have requested of this board in the past through a different kind of advisory committees, kind of a citizen engagement committee. But I do appreciate their hard work and finding the people that are willing to serve. I do hope the board takes this up if they would be in the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Yes. State your name, please.
Peter Salton. I'm not from the town of Lansing. I'm a member of the public, and I was concerned enough to come here when I happened to watch the videotape of a couple months ago. I think it was a board meeting in which Village Solars had asked for a waiver in order to erect their community than what was in their original plan. And I want to step back. I worked for the Lucentis in the 80s. I've known this family, and they're nothing if not upfront. And I think I want to congratulate the board on allowing them to build village solars and to have a planned development area. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a win-win for the community. And I really think that in the spirit of that, a planned development area, it's kind of, it's like a puzzle. And the fact that the community center wasn't put in exactly when and where it was in the plan is of no moment. Things change, needs change. I think the Lucentis laid out exactly why they wanted to change, and I think the board did the right thing in allowing the change. And that's what I wanted to say, really. And I do think that getting hyper-technical about whether it was in June or July or 2017 or 18 isn't the relevant analysis when what they're trying to do is create a right-sized center that fits the community the right way. And that's really about all I have to say.
Thank you. Does anybody want to exercise privilege of the floor?
Ted Lux, I live in East Shore Drive. I'd just like to point out, it really seemed to me that I heard the board say they were going to talk about the donation, and then you'd have somebody in 3 minutes to talk about it, give pretty much a one-sided view of the whole situation. I just did want to correct one of the statements that he made. He stated that if Mr. Levine had recused himself, that the motion would have passed because it was a 2-to-1. I'd like to point out that for a board of a member of 5 people, you need 3 positive votes in order to pass anything. So if he had not voted, that motion would not have passed. The whole issue really, I mean, I don't know about judging someone's character. I just think people are saying, why would a developer from Spencer contribute an enormous amount of money to a political party when he has a matter before the board? That's really the only question. No one's really slinging mud that I'm aware of, other than it's a question that people really don't understand. The amount actually was enormous. So if we're not allowed to talk further, I won't. But I did point out he did let someone else speak, and he did mention at least one factor is incorrect.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll comment just a little bit, not on any specifics. I think the people who have spoken tonight are right on from what the information I've heard. It's really not about Lucenti personally. It's about the ethic laws in the town of Lansing and the laws of the state that apply to our town officials. So it's not a personal attack on anyone. You know, the Lansing residents, including myself, we elect our officials, and we expect them to be accountable. We expect them to have integrity. Integrity is the cornerstone of leadership. And when these instances happen where there's appearances of impropriety, it makes one feel like the regular people in Lansing, those who work for a living, those who might be working right now and can't come to these meetings, the people without power and influence are being sidelined as development takes place in the town. So I just like to second, what Ted said. It's not anything personal. We want to hold our elected officials accountable, and we'd like to see them serve with integrity. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to have some comments tonight? Larry.
My name is Lawrence Scarponi. I've been the project engineer for Village Solars for the last 7 years. And I guess all I want to say tonight to all of you is, please look at the record of the meeting when we got the extension. I wouldn't say anything differently to you. I don't know what's happened. I'm not a part of whatever's going on politically. I always tell people I'm proud of the fact that I started working for a 5-member Republican board when I first came to town, and I ended up working for an 11-person common council, a Democratic board, when I retired from public service. So I'm not here to add anything to that record other than everything you heard from us that night was absolutely true in terms of how we evolved as a project, how we learned as we went along that the 3 bedrooms and the 2 bedrooms weren't working, and we added units, and we saw a need to change the makeup of the community building, and Mr. Rocco Luceni, the elder, passed away in 2018, and we had a need for more time to develop the project. Ironically, you may hear soon that we're going to build the very community building on the place where we were going to build it in the first place, just to get away from all the innuendo that's gone on here. And that's unfortunate. We'll build it in a way that we can convert it to residential someday if we're able to build a bigger center, but it's really unfortunate that it became politics instead of recognizing what a good community it's been and an added resource to the people that live in Lansing. Thank you.
Anyone else?
It has been over 20 minutes.
Has been over 20 minutes? All right. Okay.
I wasn't actually going to say anything, but then people got up, because I thought this kind of thing went off the rails. But Mike Sigler, I live at 218 Peruville Road. I'm the chairman of the Republican Party for Tompkins County. I'm also a member of the Lansing Republican Committee. I raise money for the committee. It is kind of what I'm good at. I don't know why I'm good at it, I generally am. I've known the Lucenis for a couple decades. Known a lot of people for a couple decades now, actually, which is kind of funny, but I didn't think that would ever happen. But listen, there are people that give money, there are people that give time. I mean, I had a whole statement on Facebook about this. The people that can give money, give money. The people that can give time, give time. They're both very valuable to me. There are people that go out and register people. There are other people that go out and pay for mailers. There are other people that go out and write letters to the editor. You know, this is what political parties are about. The idea that you in a small town are somehow beholden to people, or somehow bought out, I don't even know why that would have come up, but it did. And it saddens me, frankly, that somebody would think that. I mean, I was watching the earlier thing, and then it kind of went off the rails, and then a couple of people I respect came up, and they kind of made these assertions. And people that I like, people that I think are good people from the other side, they're asserting something about people that they know. They know these people. They work with these people. They've built playgrounds with these people. They've built affordable housing over on public land, you know, town land over there. That wouldn't have gotten done without this. They know the Lucenis. The Lucenis, they wanted to put in heat pumps and put in ecological housing. And they know them. They've met with them in their homes, and yet we're going to bash them over some kind of political whatever, vendetta. I find that remarkable. You know, so for me, I'm like, yes, you know, the Lucenis wanted to give the political party me money. Yeah, I'll take, you know, if you guys have donations, I'm open to those. I'll take those. They pay for mailers. They pay for voter registration. They pay for a lot of different things that we do as a political party. You know, We want precinct captains. We want people to go out door to door. We want people to register people. That's what political donations come to. They came to my house, 218 Fruitville Road, Fruitville, New York, 13068. Want to do that? And that's what political donations do. So, I don't know. If that's the way you think things are, then I'm sorry for you, and that's where we are. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think I'm going to step in on this. Steve Smith, 30 Salmon Creek Road. I think this loose anything is small potatoes compared to the rod and gun. The town of Lansing spent $20,000 fighting the people against clean water, Salmon Creek people or whatever they were. And then the national, whoever it is, some large gun organization spent probably another 30. So he's got $50,000 defending the rod and gun. Now, I think that's a little ridiculous. There wasn't any, okay, people, let's split some hairs here. Let's give the townspeople in Lovellville that don't like the splitting the line, let's try to work something out. None of that went on. And then basically, it's the entire government that was elected here, from the planning board all the way through. So if you don't like the government, then there's an election. So hopefully everybody, if you like the Republican way to do it, then you should vote that way or the Democratic. But that was an extremely serious situation at a local level, even though everybody tried to flip it off. That was not the case, because the feds and the state aren't going to insist you put a toxic waste dump, and they're going to say, what do you guys want? And the town said, we love a toxic waste dump. So I'm not drunk like Lisa that lost her home, but it took some nerve. I've lost a lot of, it's been a tough issue for me.
Okay, anyone else? We'll close the public hearing and move on to our next part of the agenda. That is the item 8, Lansing Community Library Report.
I guess I'd like people to just read it over. I think what the library does is just amazing. And they're expanding, and I really like number 5. It said, Youth Land Library Advisory Board, they would like middle schoolers to come and help them with future library programs. I think that's just wonderful. Anyway, it's a good report.
Okay. Moving on to item number 9, Lansing Youth Service Report.
That's another committee that I'm on, and this one is very interesting, a short report. And I think it's amazing that the kids are going to be able to participate in this, my side of the mountain, to read about that.
Okay, moving on to number 10, Tompkins County Legislator Mike Stigler. You're back again.
I'm back. It's like I never left. So I'm going to give the Lansing Library report too, because they have a fundraiser.
Oh, yeah, we can talk about that. Go to
Hey.
it. Go to it. I can't
Tomorrow, Friday night, not tomorrow night, we have a
Friday
fundraiser. It's down at, what's there? It's
The Lansing Event Center, the new one.
Thank you, the Lansing Event Center. It's right up from Lake Watch, so it's that, sister property. And you need to come in costume, people. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I went to the one at John Hamilton's a couple of years ago. It was a lot of fun. And if you come as a literary person, that's good. You're going to like my costume, I'm telling you. It's going to be great. So I've mentioned that. And it is a fundraiser for the library, obviously, so that's be great. I want to thank for having me again. I do want to thank Marcia Lynch. She's our public information officer. I draw very liberally from her reports. That covers me with the whole plagiarism thing. So I just wanted to let you know that. I do want to let you know that the Tompkins County Legislature, it was by a unanimous vote, we formally adopted amendments to the County Administrator's 2020 recommended budget. We have a budget. That's fantastic. There will be a public hearing on this budget, and that is scheduled for October 29th at 7 p.m. That is the public hearing, like I said, and come down. It's right at the County Legislature building. Come down, tell us what you think. I know it's hard to kind of pick through the budget and tell us what you think. I will say that, we're going from 2.75 to, the initial was 2.76, so we've come down by 0.01. We're low. Huge difference to you. But no, it does come down about 10 cents for your tax rate. It's kind of great. We're another year that we're going down for the tax rate. The solid waste fee does go up to $60. It's a $2 increase. We are very careful, I should mention this. It's interesting, as that goes up, people start dumping in the woods. This is not something we don't think about. It's amazing how your solid waste fee, as it goes up, people do start polluting. So we keep a close eye on that. Barb Ekstrom is right on top of that, Lansingite, and definitely watches that. You can look at all the budget if you want. It's at tompkinscountynorc.gov/CTY/admin/2020 budget. And you can look at that. It's on the report. So we also approved a series of bond resolutions. These are all serial bonds, various highways and things. I did ask the question why we're bonding all this stuff out as opposed to paying in cash. That's something we're going to be looking at. I mean, for the last 10 years, we've been bonding a lot of these things out. Money's been very cheap, so why not borrow? I mean, why lay that out when you don't have to? But there is going to come a point where you're like, well, we're paying 3% interest on this or 2% interest, and why wouldn't we just pay cash if we have the cash? So that's what we're looking at. All the different things we're going to be doing right there are listed. There are a lot of bridges we're taking care of. Not the bridge right here in Lansing. I know a lot of people were concerned about that. Ed called that. He called me about that. I definitely was in touch with the state. Matt Montag over here was right in touch with me, and Dan Wiener back here. A lot of people looking out for this bridge. Initially, it was just going to be 9 tons. They moved it up to 18 tons when they made it one way. This was a bridge that was already slated to get reconstructed, but it looks like in about a month that it'll be back to kind of normal. But for right now, DOT says it's safe, and that's where we're at, so that's what we're working on. But again, we're investing a lot of money at the county level into our towns, into our bridges, into our towns, into our town roads. So we did look at the recommended comprehensive plan update. We do this every 5 years. We've added about 18 different things into this to see what we want to add. There are certain things that I'm very in favor of. These harmful algae blooms obviously are a big concern throughout the Finger Lakes. There were a number of times, obviously, that people in Lansing, they went down to the lake and they couldn't even go swimming in the lake. This is something that it crosses, frankly, every party line, every personal line. We want our lakes to be clean. Something the county is definitely taking into consideration. And how much money do we have to invest to kind of keep the lake so that we can swim in it? And we're going to be working with the local farmers to make that happen and see what we have to do to make that happen. This may require wetlands, newly found wetlands in certain towns. Certainly something that should be in the study that we're doing. We're doing a Route 13 corridor study. I voted repeatedly against this because why is the county spending $2 million or $200,000, excuse me, to study a road that's not our road? That should be a state thing, and yet here we are, where we're going to spend county money to study this road. I'm hoping the state will step in. They already have. The DOT says we're looking at the same stretch of road you are. I think there's a disconnect there between the county and the state, so that's what we're looking at. But we are moving as a county toward a net zero emissions county. I think that's going to be extremely difficult for us to get to, but the conversation is open, and if you all have any ideas in the town of what you want to do, we're obviously under a moratorium area, which puts us kind of in the lead for all this. We have to do it, whereas the other towns and communities don't actually have to. They just choose to if they do actually choose to. This next thing is kind of neat. It was a 12-2 vote. We're enacting a new real property tax exemption for capital improvements of residential properties. We're going to have a hearing on this November 7th at 5:30. It's going to be at the chambers. It's just good. I like this idea. It means if you put in some capital improvements, we're going to get a tax break on that. We're also working on that for commercial properties. That's something Jay over in the assessment department is working on right now, so we'll let you know how that progresses. Latita James, she was in town, Attorney General. She gave a grant to $900,000 to the Ithaca Neighborhood Housing. You know, we want to build more affordable housing. She came in, $900,000 grant. The mayor was there to receive that grant as well. And anytime we can make more affordable housing in the area, that would be great. This last thing that I'm going to talk about is this rifle bill. I find this to be one of the most politically fascinating things that has happened probably in my last 3 years, because I personally didn't think this was going to happen. So you can shoot with a rifle in this county for 49 months of the year, but for 3 months of the year, or for 3 weeks of the year, you can't. And those 3 weeks of the year happen to be when you would be hunting deer and bear. Not that I've ever seen a bear in this county, but we'll put that over here. You have? Yes. So, you are an anomaly.
Okay.
Is that good? Anomaly? Anyway, so this actually passed 8-6. Very close vote to allow rifles to hunt big game, is what that would be called. Big game. You can hunt a squirrel, you can hunt a rabbit with a rifle, but not a deer apparently. But now you'll be able to. We have to put this into the DEC. The DEC has to approve it. But then, yes, in those 3 weeks where you're allowed to hunt big game, you'll be able to go out with a rifle and hunt this big game. For me, this was a lot of people, they think this will, I don't know a lot of people, but some people think that this will increase people buying rifles. The people that are hunters already have a rifle. They just go to Pennsylvania, they use the rifle down there. I think this is a good move. I mean, shotguns are effective, rifles are more effective. And if it can mean that you're going to do one shot through a deer and the deer is then put down and you're harvesting that meat for your family, great. You know, less damage to the animal, less pain and suffering. I think that's a good way to go. And that's why I voted for this. Plus the fact that I don't see why you would ever ban it. If somebody ever came to me and said, well, we're going to ban this, I'd go, well, why? Nobody would really have a good answer. Well, there you go. That's why I would have banned it in the first place. So I'm glad to see this come back in the books. And I have to thank Mr. Costello, who is a Lansingite, lives over there on Asbury Road, or around the corner there. And he pushed this forward. He is a DEC official, basically teaches the hunter courses, and said, you know, there's absolutely no reason why this should not go forward. He recruited a lot of people to his cause and was a model of how, if you want to change something at your county level, at your town level, this is how you do it. You collect enough people, you present them with the evidence, and you convince them. And he did, because this did not pass 6 years ago, and yet here we are today. So that's it. I want to thank you for having me. I'm sorry I took so long. And any questions?
Mike, I just want to thank you for helping with when I forwarded the email from Mr. Baird on Lansing Road and his concerns about big trucks going out on the road.
I tell you, valid concerns. I mean, I live on Brewville, and there was a certain trucker, he was going by too fast, and I happened to be friends with him on Facebook, and I literally texted him 2 minutes while I'm waiting for the bus, and he said, we're going to take care of that right now. I said, okay. And that's the kind of information I need.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, no problem. You know, trucking is, let's face it, trucking is a big industry around here. We've got the salt mine. We've got a lot of the corn guys going out. I mean, they just harvested our stuff about 2 weeks ago. And there are trucks going in and out all the time. And, you know, we've got school buses. We've got a lot of stuff going on our main roads. We are becoming a town that used to be just a town of highways to a town of, listen, we've got people pulling out. This is now the community over here. You've got 72 units going into the town center. How are we going to adjust to that in our roadways? So, no, I thank you for getting back to me.
Yeah, we are working on that. Any other questions for Mike? Go ahead and move on.
Yeah, I would like to know a bit about the cost overruns on the airport. They're fairly substantial. What happened?
They are substantial, and it's concerning. Mike, I'm going to defer you to Michael, but from my understanding of Mike Hall, we're going to make up some of those cost overruns, a lot of them with increased prices on the actual travelers, not on us. We've actually, as a county, have never really given money to the airport. I shouldn't say given, that's not a really good phrase for that. It's
Allotted.
a lot, yeah, better. I've never taken tax money and given it to the airport. We've always done it through fees at the airport, so if you're a traveler, whatever the $5 fee is, or we'll do it on the ticket price. And that's how we're going to go forward. And they have a certain name for that, and that is the direction we're going to go with this. Yeah, the cost overruns are definitely a consideration. And the cost overruns, frankly, for that project should impact all of our decision-making going forward. You cannot build anything for what you think you're going to build it for. In this day and age, every single project, I'm on the IDA too, and no project comes in at what they say it's going to be. It's always 10 to 15% above. The airport's kind of right about there. I will say about the airport, I don't know how you go forward as a community. And that's something I tell you, I go out to the state. Lansing is kind of awesome in that regard. The fact that we have an airport that's going to become an international airport. We have a salt mine that employs 200 people, a lake that puts out salt to the entire state. We used to have a power plant that will become, hopefully, a data center. I mean, and Borg Warner, not to forget them, that is putting out auto parts and converting to electrical cars up there, as that's the movement forward. It's pretty remarkable, frankly, our town. So, and that's the message we send forward to the state. So I understand what you're saying, Joe. Certainly something we keep tabs on, and I'm thankful that we have Mike Hall up there, frankly, keeping tabs on.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
All right. Okay, item 11, Park Rec, Matt.
Good evening. Just going to touch on a couple things here real quick. Wrapped up our fall soccer season last week. Best season we've had as far as participation in the last couple of years. We actually hosted a varsity boys soccer game this year, which was the first for us. We have one more modified game to host, probably tomorrow, if the weather cooperates. And we will be hosting again trunk or treat on the ball fields this year on Halloween, so another great event out on the ball fields. As far as the parks, obviously we've done a lot of plantings the last few weeks in Salt Point and Myers Park. A large number of trees thanks to grants from the county. Hopefully we'll have that wrapped up within the next couple of weeks. Camping has ended on Columbus Day. I think we again went over our projected revenue for that. Boat slips holders must be out by November 1st, so hopefully most of those get out of there by then. They're still about 50% in the marina now. That's about all I got.
Were the guys able to get more ceilings in the pavilions?
We hope to start that project tomorrow. That's on the list if the weather cooperates for that. We have some electric we have to move around, and then we can get started. We also are putting up a migratory bird antenna on one of the pavilions that's going to have, if you probably read that, we're going to have a kickoff thing at 2 o'clock on Saturday for that. I'm not exactly sure how it works, so I'll probably attempt to figure that out. What about the park home? That you're going to give me? Mike has graciously called me and told me about some more money that may be available in the future. Thank you, Mike Sigler.
So did that park money go to this proposal you have for the security camera?
That park money can be used towards a plethora of things, I have been told.
Thank you, Mike Sigler, for helping us with the town of Lansing camera proposal.
But thank you to the county in general, because 2 of the grants that we received were for the trees and plantings in Myers Park and Salt Point, so.
And it might have been a point at which you wish they weren't so generous.
Yes,
When you're in the middle of
yes,
planting
yeah.
all those trees.
When do we, I guess, as far as the money goes, Pat or Mike, is this a hope or is this a reality that we might get some more park money?
Am I going to step on it? I don't want to.
No.
I'm going to enhance this conversation.
So the park money is in the budget again, $50,000, but it's going to go to people who, the first money is going to go to people who didn't get it before. But they may not apply again, so we should definitely sock that in. However,
We, as in CJ and I, will be applying again.
However, I did find out, which I did not know this until this year, the STPB money, which is your room tax, right? You go and stay in a hotel, you pay like 5%. As the base. That money is also available to the town. I used to think that was only available to like agencies and things like that, or the Kitchen Theater, for example, or some other, the Hangar Theater. No, it is actually available to our town parks. And so Stewart Park used to put it as Friends of Stewart Park. Okay, great. So the park didn't actually get the money, the Friends of Stewart Park. But we can put in as a municipality for that money. So if you want to redo the bathrooms, which Pat has said he wants to do, down at Myers, boom, you can put it for that money. Or if you want to do some other project down there, like, I don't know, put in a dock. Who would want to do that? But you can do that. And you
Unlimited options.
So I would encourage you to, yes, address it. Because Pat was very nice. He sent me the money. Or not the money, he sent me the number.
Let's talk about
He
that.
sent me the numbers of how many people come into our park. Because the argument's always like, you've got to bring in people from out of county. He sent me the numbers. 1,700 people from out of county come into Myers Park. Was it per month?
Per month.
Per month. Now, I'm assuming it's during the summer, but still, that's a lot of people. That
And
we're
they
bringing
pay
in.
and they pay full price.
And, well,
$5.
whatever the case.
As opposed to someone who doesn't like our residents, right?
True. Residents are free.
Another revenue stream.
You are not an amenity just, though, for Lansing. You are an amenity for people that, a lot of people from Cuyahoga County come and say, I'm going to go see that band at Myers Park, and they come here. And that's, what more do you want? Right?
And CJ, you're well aware of this, I'm sure, so.
She is not.
You might be surprised what she knows.
One last thing, obviously you all have in front of you, I think the camera proposals / quotes that we've gathered over the last few weeks. That's for your consideration. Review it, look at it, ask me questions, ask Owen questions. We would like to move on this sooner than later, but we can wait till next year, or not, but I know it wasn't a budgeted expense, so. I know, that's why I love Steve.
It's okay, it's my job. I would recommend to the board that if they have any questions for Patrick, that they put everybody in this conversation on the board, going back and forth, so we can do the questions and answers. And now the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, with the cameras and everything. You have a tremendous concern about the security, which might actually accelerate this process because it's a security issue.
Correct.
So the town barn bid has one camera per back lot. Is that the barn back there, the garage?
It's, no, there's more than one camera for the highway department, but we can dive into that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything else?
Sounds like reading.
But yeah, if you would like an email to electronic version, we can do that.
Yeah. Okay, no, I know we had concern about this, and I I commend you for moving quickly on this because it's not the only thing you have to do once all the other balls in the air. So I appreciate this. And once again, I urge the board to move quickly, not to ram it through, but on the other hand, we have a concern about our citizens in a variety of places. And we may have some serious discussion sooner than later.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Yeah, I just, as we're nearing the end of your first season where you're running the whole thing, I just want to say that I was really impressed at how closely you made most of your numbers in the budget. I was looking at it this afternoon, and you did an impressive job of meeting those numbers, and I know it's hard to predict.
Thanks.
With all these events and weather and stuff.
And
you did
projects that come up on schedule, but
Absolutely.
not off the radar totally, yeah.
So congratulations, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
yes,
it.
thank you. By the way, I'm not surprised. Thank you. Next we have Highway Superintendent.
Yeah, but your numbers are bigger.
Hi, Cricket.
Hey, good evening. Anyways, getting that time of year, unfortunately, we've got plenty to do yet. A couple rain days here last couple weeks. We've got trucks pretty much ready to go for the season we don't like to talk about, but anyways, creek project was coming along good down there at Sandy Creek. DEC didn't grant us an extension to continue working, so half the project's done. We'll finish up the other half after May 15th next year, which is a project on by Lockerbie Hill. So that's went really well. Had some good results of that. Had some good weather to work on. Main replacement on trip hammer roads, obviously under motion. If people haven't seen that, there again, the auto flaggers are worth their weight in gold if anybody's been through that.
Those are our auto flaggers?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I saw one of the guys kicking one the other day.
Maybe you need to remove them. Or just move one of the, no pun intended. But no, we got odds and ends of projects we're trying to get wrapped up here, and hopefully the weather cooperates. But guys have done a great job this summer, and we've got a lot of things done. We'll just continue to keep plugging away. Any questions?
I noticed we're low on the plowing budgets and stuff because we had a heavy winter. Are you concerned about that?
Well, I'm always concerned about it. So, but yeah, I mean,
It is what it is. We're going to plow the roads.
who knows? I mean, it usually has a way of kind of working itself out. So hopefully we'll see where it all shakes out.
To ease the tension here, we have 6 months of fund balance. So our powers at 2, convoys at 3. We have plenty of wiggle room. Because our main concern is keeping our residents safe.
Absolutely.
That's the top priority.
Yep.
Simple as that. Which brings me, I'll use this as a segue. One of my friends asked me why we don't use cinders instead of salt. And I wanted to say, obviously, safety reasons, but you were the expert in the room.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, the acidic runoff from so on and so forth. Over the years, we've, used a lot of different combinations, whether, you go back 30 years ago, cinders were kind of the in thing, everybody used them. Then it switched to sand. We switched to a bees mix, which we're kind of weaning off that, going to more of a straight salt application, which, requires a little bit less, but we attack things a little more often. The cinders, the sand, things like that, I mean, they're going to give you a runoff and build up, and then it just, it fills in your ditches, more often and things like that. It's just that, and cost-wise, they used to give the things away, so of course everybody used them when you could just go to the plant and get them, and then of course there started being a cost for them, and a lot of the northern towns still use them. But we've always tried to look at kind of weighing the cost of where the efficiency is. Cinders are, the tough part of them is they get wet, they hold the moisture, they freeze, they clump, they're just kind of nasty to work with. The availability of them is no more at this point for us. We switched to the sand, which is a little cleaner, and then of course we, places that supply the sand that start to become more silty, so then you kind of get into more rain, early spring, it kind of makes the intersection slimy and things like that, and then there's a greater risk of, accidents, things like that. So like I said, we switched to, it's a 1B, it's a very tiny pebble, it's almost a sand-sized pebble. So the nice part is that works itself off the road. It actually gives you some decent, shoulder material base there. It doesn't seem to build up like the sand does, so I guess that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's what a nice 6 years of experience does, right?
Right.
Nice out. Right, very good. Good. Any questions for our highway superintendent? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
CJ, planning report?
So I will just touch on the highlights from the monthly report as per the usual. Ag District number 1, so that's the town of Lansing, is under review now to the end of the year. So this is an opportunity to add or remove parcels from the agricultural district. Now through the end of 2019. I have corresponded with Monica Roth, who at Cornell Cooperative Extension is helping us essentially do this. It's a county designation, the ag districts. And I anticipate that she will be here to discuss the findings of the joint November 25th Planning Board and Agricultural Committee meeting. They're having that on Monday the 25th, and then I anticipate she'll be here to speak with you about the Ag District on at the December 18th meeting. So just an FYI about that. Salt Point Farm Brewery and Tasting Room received preliminary and final approval last month. If you're not familiar with the project, it will be a tasting room on Parcel D, just across the way there. And just received preliminary plans from Dave Herrick, the engineer, which will be reviewed with Highway as well about the location of the crosswalk and the exact location of the sidewalk, as well as the schematics essentially for that and the Woods Edge Drive realignment as well. Those are bundled into the same permit. And thankfully, DOT was fine with just amending the original permit that was done under. We didn't have to do a whole new one just to move the crosswalk, which was really nice. Also approved by the planning board last month was a minor subdivision on Purville Road adjacent to the Marabdo. And with that included permanent easements to the town to enable that Town Garden Road loop that has been requested by Water and Sewer Board and Highway. And also of note is the Ridge Road imports expansion. They look like it's pretty much done, but they're adding on just a little more than 1,300 square feet to their existing facility over on East Shore Drive. Also, we've continued to correspond with a variety of folks regarding the draft solar and wind local law. You should have received from me last week a somewhat lengthy, although I tried to condense it down into a smaller synopsis about the various moving pieces of this, and hopefully that helped. I'm going to try to find out some more information also about these, the replacement of those 60 transmission towers, which seems like a project of note. We recently received a stormwater plan for that project, but I would like to obviously know more from NYSEG about the larger intentions of the project, which also includes, runs all the way from Cuba Power Plant to the NYSEG station in Dryden. So we're collaborating with them also on that particular issue, and that was mentioned, and I put a link in the email to that in case you have any questions. And people are continuing to ask a lot of questions and give a lot of interesting feedback as these larger Article 10 projects roll along. So stay tuned, and please let me know if you have questions about that email. I've also received just recently from Tad Palmer at NYSEG the information about pursuing the LED conversion. If you did still want to do that, where the town would, where NYSEG would continue to own the lights, but the town would essentially pay for the replacement of the bulbs. I have to coordinate with the town attorney on this, obviously, to determine which lights are in which of the districts, and whether that needs to go to some kind of permissive referendum or some other type of decision-making in order to replace those. So I'll have more on that soon. That was kind of a question from your meeting where I was phoned into recently, which sounds weird, but you know, on the phone, we were talking about the different options for that particular program, and it occurred to me that we need to get the actual spatial data from where the lights actually are so that we can assign them to the different districts, because that's how that cost savings actually ends up being realized. Is Charmaine and I did some math on it, and it may end up working out. We got to figure out which lights are where though, so stay tuned on that. And I think that's more or less the highlights. I've also sent you recently the draft 2020 work plan. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. It's obviously quite packed. It's very exciting. Exciting plan, which includes some really significant milestones, such as, our code clerk, Sue Munson. She's part of our venerable establishment over there. Is may not continue, but so we're thinking about the succession planning for that. And then, of course, obviously a whole bunch of interesting projects that we'll be managing, including the Myers Park project, we hope. Assuming that funding comes through, along with updating the land use ordinance, taking a good crack at that. County planning is getting ready to issue their essentially request for proposals. I don't know if you all received that, but the county sent along this little survey about planning, and so I filled it out. And one of the options was that we could get a couple hundred hours of a staff member's time, so that could be really cool. To work on updating the land use ordinance, especially if I can kind of give them some of the graphics assignments. I already have a good deal of graphics available to me, so it'd be great to have somebody continue to work on beefing those up. Now that I have a better sense of what I think the planning board is looking for, as well as the coordinating a generic environmental impact statement for Town Center, which is something I'd like to talk to the Town Center committee a bit more about. But we are also just getting ready to kick off this coming, in the next week or two, the traffic impact study for the Town Center, which we received Tompkins County Municipal Housing Affordability Grant money for. So it's really exciting. It's a very exciting work plan for next year, obviously quite packed. But if you have suggestions or things you want to see that are different, or comments, whatever, you definitely let me know. And
Okay, any questions for TJ?
I just want to thank you and the other people, Dave, Justice of the Peace, and everybody for keeping on top of the application to make our front door ADA accessible. And I really hope we can get that done in 2010. So thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. A number of people really helped out a lot with that, including the court, without whose assistance we could not have, frankly, submitted it at all. So they were really, really fantastic, and fingers crossed that we can win the money. That'd be great.
Any questions? I do have a question, comment. I'll bring it into this conversation. Our last meeting for our budget, there was concern about if we got this grant from Myers Park, how much of that in kind, how much of that is where Trigger can maybe shed some light on this. How much would the town be responsible for? My understanding is most of that would be in-kind donations, and I think there was some concern about if we could do all the in-kind donations, but my understanding also was that this is a, 3-year project?
Yeah, that's correct. That runs through 2022. I'm just bringing up the budget.
I think the actual cash amount that the town would be what, about $32,000 a year? That's not right, about 96 for all 3 years, or maybe I think of another different number that the town would actually have to pay cash.
And there was some budgeted for equipment, and then I think it was $140 per year for labor on the project.
There was some planning and
engineering
money.
labor in general.
And that would come out of the record, if this becomes a reality, that would come out of the record budget for all this in-kind, or how would that work, do you think?
It'd have to come out of A.
Well, I mean, labor-wise and stuff would certainly work. I mean, it's just any added equipment expense right now. I mean, theoretically, we probably should be able to cover it within, regular expenses.
Well, once again, we have 6 months fund balance, comptroller wants 3, auditor wants 2. We have money there that will, it's a little bit over, I think, I have to check the numbers, up $200,000 per month. So we have money in the budget if we have to slide over into that area, which is all been factored in.
Rick, would we have to buy any equipment to finish this grant, or do we actually own all the equipment necessary?
No, we pretty much own everything. I mean, with the exception of renting a piece or something.
Yeah.
So as far as, normal expenses, I'm confident.
Okay.
We do it all the time.
Just we. So when they say those park guys really did a great job, you can.
It's always the guy behind the scenes.
There you go.
For 5.
I think we got our answers, but thank you.
Okay, yeah, sure. And also the timeline for that project could be staggered such that the in-kind and labor/equipment that's listed here as the funding source via Town of Lansing Highway and Parks, that total would be $499, $184 in-kind. That could be in 2021 and 2022 largely in terms of the labor, because the engineering costs are going to be most of next year. So we can figure out how to stagger that so it works for them.
Okay, nothing else, thank you. Item 14, there is no engineer report. Number 15, county is here, in case you want to know there's no ag report.
I don't really have much on the ag committee. CJ updated you on the new ag district, or putting that land back into the ag district. We plan to meet with the planning board in November. So right now, it's really hard to have a meeting because we're right in the midst of fall harvest and everything else. So until they're able to meet again, that's where we're at. But they're in touch with us if we need anything, so we're good.
Okay, good. Moving on to number 16, authorizing changes to tentative budget and authorizing preparation and filing of preliminary budget.
I'll move that.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Bickowitz?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Now this will be put, this is now the preliminary, this is now put on the website as is, or is there?
I don't know when it goes on the website. I thought I heard Charmaine say that previously they went on the website once they were final, but I don't know the rules. We're totally upfront on that.
Okay.
But if anybody wants one, they can certainly email myself or Charmaine, we can get it to them.
Good. Now we're on to item 17, resolution scheduling public hearing for special district's proposed 2020 budget.
Second.
This will be at 6:31 p.m. on the 6th day of November, 2019. Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Bickowitz?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Item 18, resolution scheduling public hearing for the town of Lansing preliminary budget for 2020.
I'll move that.
Okay.
Second.
This will at 6:33 p.m. on the 6th day of November.
Joe, were you the second on that?
Yeah.
No further discussion, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Katrina Bickowitz?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Item 19, resolution to approve waiving town's portion of the marriage license fee for active duty military personnel.
I will move that one gladly.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Can you talk about how this came up?
Yep.
Steve, got me too.
Yes, please.
Well, most of it is in the resolution. About August 20th, Governor Cuomo signed a bill amending the domestic relations law and waiving the state portion of the fee when someone applies to a town clerk for a marriage license. Part of the fee stays with the town and part of the fee goes to New York State. So Governor Cuomo waived the fee for the state portion if either party is an active member of the military. And then as part of that law, it was towns and cities could elect to waive their portion of the marriage license fee.
Did the state approach you and other municipalities to do that, or did you just see it and say, let's do it?
Well, the local town clerks found out about the new law when somebody ran into somebody at the local post office and they heard about it.
Okay. Love that communication channel.
And the New York State Department of Health, when they were called by the local clerks, knew nothing about the new law.
The Department of Health?
Well, that's who the marriage licensing is through, was through New York State Department of Health. They didn't know anything about the new law. So.
So you educated.
So basically, you brought it to the board and they're voting on it now?
This, yes.
Thanks.
Any other further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Trina Bankowitz?
Yes.
Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Item 20, approve audit budget modifications. Second?
Second.
Okay, we got the second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Trina Bankowitz?
Yes.
Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. 5 minutes, please. Want to go first, Joe?
Sure. I'll try to keep it to 5 minutes. So TCOG, interesting report from the county administration that the growth in sales tax is slowing down, so we should expect that to not be growing at the same rate it has been in the past. And Tompkins County is looking really heavily at the census right now because from their estimates, Tompkins County is headed towards a 20-25% undercount. And so they're working really hard to make sure that it doesn't get undercounted because a lot of state money and representation is based on that. Cuba Lake Watershed, a municipal organization, is looking at how to get the 3 counties more engaged in protecting the lake, and they focused on that through most of the meeting. Ithaca Transportation Council, I talked with Mark Frechette from DOT about the status of bridges in town. The one-lane bridge on Route 34B that we have now, they're figuring they should be doing repair work on it right now, is my understanding, and that they're hoping to have that done by mid-November. The bridge is slated for replacement starting in 2021. They should have contracts in place by the fall of 2020. Spring 2021, they're hoping to start construction. It's a $24 million project. It's going to take about 2 years to complete, and there's going to be a huge work during that entire 2 years. So expect a lot of traffic issues through that. The Ludloville Bridge, they're hoping to start that this spring, 2020. It's a 1-year project. They're hoping to finish one and start on the other.
1 year, okay.
That's what they're saying. And you know, I've been pushing them at this to say, look, it's really important you guys coordinate because they haven't been. They've just been kind of saying, we're doing bridge projects and doing them separately. And I'm saying, you've got to think of them together because it's really important. So they're trying to do them one after another, and hopefully they'll succeed. I asked if they could give us more ideas of what the design changes are because both bridges are going to change in design. And Mark said he'd get those to me and I'll pass them on as soon as I get them. The DOT facility, they are about to sign a contract for it, and work will start almost immediately on that. They're hoping to have it done by December of 2020, but they don't want to move during the winter, so the facility will be moving sometime in the spring of 2021. The planning board, Salt Point was approved, as CJ said. The planning board also talked about how they want to start putting together design guidelines for the town center lands. As we start building more and more projects, they want to have kind of a unified look there, and so they want to start talking about design guidelines for that. And you also saw that they passed a resolution on large-scale solar subsidies. I think everybody got that in their email. Website. Pat is going to be working on getting photos for the different board members so we can have that on the website. And we need to still deal with the web czar who can make sure that our website stays up to date, because I know you put a ton of work into it, and as time goes on, things start to fall off and become out of date, and we don't want our website to become out of date. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now and try to figure out who, but we need to get moving on that to keep what we put all this time and money into creating.
It would be helpful if these were given to an email ahead of time so we could discuss it before.
He did send it out, I don't know, a few weeks ago.
Well, to you, but I...
Oh, you didn't send it to the whole board?
No, but I sent it to,
okay.
I forget who, but I think Ed was on the list, weren't you? When I first sent you asked me for a job description, and I sent it.
I'm waiting for the committee to work that out. So I delegate that to the committee. So the committee needs to bring the board up to speed before we just do this at the last minute. So this is something we can discuss hopefully during the November time, and then perhaps have something in place for our November meeting. One thing we're also doing is that, moving forward, is that a lot of these resolutions, we're doing a cutoff of, what is it, 2 weeks now for a board meeting?
Yeah.
So people need to accelerate this as opposed to the last minute, because it is a nightmare for our clerk, amongst others. And our clerk has a very thick skin, a very strong work ethic, but at some point we need to be more civil to her and also to our attorney. So this is why if we don't get anything in by the first Wednesday, it'll go on the next month.
So
it's not a criticism of you, that's just a preview of coming attractions. So whoever has these things, they need to get them out to us as soon as they can. If there's an answer, they need to do a follow-up saying, we really need to be moving on this to have some questions answered if you have any.
Okay, so I'm a little confused by this because, as you know, I work on an hourly basis as needed. And so I didn't even know that there was a committee.
Well, my understanding was Patrick, you, and Joe. Those are the ones doing the bulk of the work.
Well,
Those are the ones that I'm relying on to share with the rest of the board. Once again, not a criticism of you. Somebody saying, moving forward, how do we get this to the rest of the board so that we can look at it in a timely fashion. I also realized that this last month was a little crazy because of the holiday. So once again, this is not a criticism, this is a communication. We can move forward because it sounds like this website is always going to have to be tinkered, tweaked, massaged, nudged, whatever. So that's where we need to put perhaps a budget together with someone that's going to be the czar, as I guess that's the word we're using now, to be able to do that.
Okay. I think that I provided the information I was asked for when I was asked for it. And my communication with Joe back and forth, what was it, a week ago or so, it was just a casual reminder that I still think that this czar thing should happen. So it was just a recommendation.
I will send out, you put together a really nice list of responsibilities on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and I will send that out to the board. And
that would be appreciated. Thank you.
And I must say, I didn't even know I was on a committee.
Not only are you on a committee, but you're a czar. So do you want me to call Czar Dan or Czar Wiener?
Well, you know my story. That when I
Please share it.
When I quit teaching, I made one promise to myself that I would never, ever, ever allow myself to be put on another committee as long as I lived. And then we started the Lansing Star, and I go to all the committees, but I don't get a vote.
We'll call you Czar then.
No, not Czar.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, I'm passing out a page on Peter Wheeler. The top part is kind of a draft of what the sign would say it looked like, and then I've got several quotes of how much different versions of it would cost. And so I think the board needs to look this over and think about it, and let's discuss what we want do in terms of that. And I thank Patrick, who spent a lot of time getting reports on the various kinds of signs.
At some point, we're going to have a serious discussion about plaques and the cost it is to taxpayers, amongst other things, how we can do recognizing people. Does it belong in a plaque? Does it belong perhaps someplace else? I don't know. But if we're going to continue to do this, this is going to get, is it $1,000 to $1,200? Is that what we get here?
We're looking at the one-time expense, yeah.
Well, okay, it's a one-time expense that the taxpayers have to pay. So one time for this, one time for somebody else, one time for somebody else. And once again, I don't mind having that discussion, but also we should be allocated funds that we can say, okay, here's a set amount we want to put towards that for this year as we do all the rest. Once again, it's not a criticism, it's a conversation. Okay? Anything else, Joe?
No, that's fine.
Andrea?
I have not been available for the last 8 weeks, and I'm sorry about that, but unfortunately, the family situation is quite grave. It is much better. My husband's doing much better. I'm grateful for everybody's thoughts and prayers.
Well, glad we have good news. He's getting better. That's to me the most important thing. Doug?
Well, I was out of the country for the early part of the month, so I haven't been in any planning board meetings. Other than that, I've been working quite often, so I don't have any.
Okay.
There was no ZBA meeting, but the Friends of South Point and Parks and Rec worked very hard to get the 6 plots put in and planted and mulched. Do we still have a little bit to do on my list? No? We're done. Great. So it's very gratifying. Great project. There's a large increase in diversity of plant species, so we have improved habitat as things go forward, so that's good. I had something else, but I forgot.
I'll start talking and you straight yeah, let it go, let us circle back. Okay? All right. A couple things. Airport Service Board, we're going to Mike Hall and Josh Nally, just a joy. Absolute joy. I mean, it's phenomenal the things that they can accomplish with that board and the allocation of money. So rather than criticize someone about the override, I would like to embrace them and thank them for what they've done. Also, the fact is that we work with the Water and Supervisory Board. The Weinsteins have paid their part of the sewer district #1, so we can say that the taxpayers paid 0 for that. And that's on the dime of the Weinsteins and on the dime of the Youngs. And that's a private lateral. We'll see where that goes, but that's up to the developers. I think the village of Lansing nominated for easements. We're going to easements from DOT. So we're working together with them, also working on the meters. We're still waiting for those meters to get it right for Sherry Road. And once the meter system goes in, it's going to revolutionize exactly how the product is measured. Not by each unit, EDU, per gallon, but actually on actual flow. And not my surprise that that'll open up all that different area for more controlled development where it should be. You have the infrastructure of water and sewer. And also the fact for the environmental impact, it'll minimize that because you're not taking up so much land, a lot more green space. And the Weinsteins are coming back to another proposal which actually has more green space this time. So it's all encouraging as we move forward. Water districts, we're now working on number 5, which is Proveville, which I think will have a resolution at our next board meeting. So we'll go with the debt service on that one. And thanks to Cricket and our engineer Dave Herrick, amongst others, who came up with a plan for that one. There'll also be a benefit district there. We've come back with the final numbers for number 4, which is Drake Road. Their debt service is $797 at the start per EDU, and after they pay back the town of $27,000 plus, after the 4th year, it drops down to $615. So it's roughly about $51 a month. You average in the 5,000 gallons per quarter. It's around 65 gallons per month for water. And I ask people, would you pay $65 a month for water? So we'll see. In the meantime, we're going to search for easements for number 3. That's one that has the 4.5 miles. That's the one that the residents voted on. It's not my legacy, because I don't believe in those. It is about what they have done, self-determination, and they approved it. So if people have arguments with that in their own district, they can argue with their neighbors. Because after all, they voted on it, not me. Number 6 we're concerned about, which is Lansing Station Road. And if anybody thought that running a sewer pipe down the railroad would have been an easy piece of cake, you have other thoughts. And so when that proposed sewer district was going to be proposed, I dare say this would have really turned into something you did not bargain for. We have worked with them very hard to get some of these laterals. We don't know where that's going to go. We don't know where the numbers are, but we seem to have a definitive design, and there's going to be multiple laterals underneath the railroad. And the other thing we have to worry about is how do our great highway department fix them? Because as you know, most water breaks don't happen at 10 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday. They usually end up in the afternoon or evening, terrible evening. So how do we make our workers safe so they can get to these things? Because the residents are concerned about the algae bloom. We have to look at what the finances are because the comptroller may not even allow it. So we'll see about that. So having said that, we move on to senior citizens. I was the president of Lansing Senior Citizens because they would have dissolved. And we move over to the Lansing Community Center, and we'll see where they want to go from there. I found a secretary and also a treasurer so they can keep going. And I only did it because no one else wanted to step forward. And I really don't know what's going to happen next year if no one steps forward. Hopefully somebody will. But once again, I'm a firm believer that you decide your fate, not the government. If they don't want this, I respect their decisions. If they do want it, then I'll support it the best I can. What else? Budget. Budget looks like we're on our way to maybe another budget being passed. This is a minuscule increase, 0.00001 or something like that, I forget. It was basically the same. So in 4 years, the rate went up 5 cents per thousand. And I'll remember that's $5 per thousand. So that's $1.25 average per year. I would never say it's only, that's disrespectful. I say I'm sorry I had to go up, but it did. We've lost $40 million from the power plant. Cumulatively, it's $100 million over 3 years. And by the way, we also lost $15 million from the shops of Ithaca. Yes, your rate basically is only going up, it went up 5 cents per thousand. Yes, and your assessments did go up. I fully understand all those different dynamics. But one of the things that the school superintendent said is one of the reasons the rate didn't go up so much was because the assessments basically absorbed a lot of that. And moving forward, we looked as though next year there'll be hopefully more growth as we move forward. That's all I have right now. Work session, I would like to forego that because we have some executive session stuff to deal with.
One quick question about sewer district 1. Is there a schedule for that yet for the construction?
That is up to the owners of that district, which would be Mr. Young and Mr. Weinstein, and also the other players, which are the Village of Lansing, because that's where the transmission line goes through. And by the way, the Village of Lansing will get a very nice chunk of change, I think, if I'm not mistaken, CJ, $800,000 from the developer or something like that. It's a big chunk of money that the village will get. Plus, we also have to coordinate that with the Village of Hugo Heights, but since we have such a great relationship with them now, it's nice to work with both municipalities. So, I was just going to take a break. If you want to come back, then we can move to go into the next session. Okay. So let's take about a 5-minute break.